We are live and good. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Dan Beit-Or. If I'm based in California, I've been investing in real estate for many years, since 2002, while working for corporate Israel, and then moving to the States and continuing to do it on a large scale. We do this session every week at Friday at 11 a.m. The whole purpose is to educate, interact, engage with you, give you an opportunity to to learn, to ask, and anything about real estate investing. The title for this week is actually open session. So actually, I did not every week I prep a topic that I tackle. I always have topics in my mind. But today we're doing something a little bit more less casual. See, I'm less casually look like. And the whole purpose of today is actually not to come with a topic, but give you the opportunity to ask questions that you may have on your end. So if you want to start, I'll take your questions. Hopefully you have some. And if you want me to go anywhere and start talking about different things, I can do that as well. So I'll wait here for maybe half a minute, see if Nir, which I know you always have questions, typically have questions, maybe you want to bring something up, maybe another person wants to engage and ask questions, that's fine. If you want me to talk about how I got started, I can do that as well. What drove me to get started. Nir, you've been a long time member of this group, so maybe there are things you talked about. Hello, Tal, my friend, my good friend. How are you? We're doing an open session today, Tal, about kind of hoping for you guys to bring on questions. Maybe you have something on your end that we even may talked in the past weeks that you want to clarify. Here's an opportunity. So I didn't bring any topic this week with a clear purpose to actually give you the opportunity to ask questions. So I'm just talking, killing time. But this is actually an open session. We can wrap it up in a few minutes if we have no questions, or we can actually have something come up. Nir, you always have questions. Tal, you always have questions. I don't know the other people well enough to encourage them. I need an icebreaker. I need someone say, Danny, talk about cash flow. Danny, I'm stuck. That's better. I like that topic. I'm stuck about cars. You should talk to my son about it. Don't ask me about the weather. Don't ask me those things. I'm not a professional. You want to talk about rentals, flips, locally, out of state, US based, of course, mortgages, challenges, obstacles, something that's holding you back, you're not sure how to tackle. This is your opportunity. People are joining and I don't want to repeat myself. So open session today. Bring your question. I'm just going to do that. Unless you direct me what to do, I'm going to be just babbling about that. If not, I'll just wrap up a quick one today. Perfect. Oh, I would like to ask you about leverage. So I see 3 questions so far. I would like to ask you about leverage. I think one of the questions from Nir, one of the questions, well, while I'm reading, Misha, if you can just elaborate a little bit more when you say leverage. I know what that means to me. It's kind of a little bit kind of vague request, which I'm willing to take it, at its face value. But if you can be a little bit more specific about when you say leverage, in what respect, in what aspect, that'll be helping me address it. If not, I'll take it as the way I see it. So that'll be great. I'm going to take the 2 more questions and then I'll come back to it. Nir is saying, I think one of the questions would be how to continue after the first property. Is it smart to refinance an existing investment property to get new ones? If you don't want to increase your main home mortgage. Okay. And the next question I have, are you free for a date? And that's my lovely wife. Yes, I am. Maybe we'll have lunch together today. So with pleasure. Let me wrap up this session first before we talk about our date. Okay. So I'm going to start with Nir's question, and then I'm going to move into the leverage aspect. If Misha wants to elaborate, that'll be great. So Nir is asking, you bought one. I'm going to assume you bought one house. What do you do next? Okay, so I think this is where. So ideally, what I would want you to see you doing there is buying one and another one and another one and another one. Obviously, kind of maybe at your own pace. It may be a house per year. It may be a house per a house every 6 months. Everybody's different. I have investors that are on a one per year basis. I have investors that are buying every other year. I have investors that I work with. They're buying, this year 5 or 6 or 7. I got a guy who works for Google, a super nice guy, works for Google. Between July of 2016 and January of 2017, he bought 9 houses. Okay, so everybody's different. I think the most important thing I want you to take from this, Nir, on one hand, is the forward movement, progress, right? One house is good. 2 houses is better. 2 houses are better. 3, etc. You get the point. Now the question is, what do? You got one. Typically what I see, and I think that makes sense, the first one is the most challenging one, the most concerning one. A lot of the skepticism we have, we bring it with us, and really, the first house, when we see that it works, I mean really works, right, is when we purchase the house, maybe fix it up a little bit, just a little bit to make it rent ready, and then we moved on and put it on the market for a rental, and then we wait, let's say a month, and we get a renter who comes in and pays the rent, and the first month rent goes to some leasing fee, and only on the second month of the rental is that when we actually get to see the rent coming in to our pocket, to our bank account, and then on the third month we're seeing another rent comes in, and another month another rent comes in. I think usually when you see that for 3-4 consecutive months the rent is coming in, is at the point that you're saying, okay, it's working. It's at the point that you're saying, this method that I'm so biased towards and I'm so in love with, and I think it's an amazing method to build wealth, slow but very steady, method to build wealth, is working when you buy that house and you see that the rent coming in and rent coming in and rent coming in, right? Actually, so much so, I have an investor, a good friend of mine. She purchased a house with us, I think back in 2000 and I want to say 14, maybe 13 or 14. She bought one. She was very nervous. Her background was always stocks. She's never done real estate. She got one. Everything happened pretty much as we told her it will happen in terms of some vacancies, some repairs, all of those things. And then everything was fine. She said, okay, I'm going to buy another one. She bought 2. Then she bought the third one. And before she was about to purchase the fourth one, and I'm talking about over a period of maybe a year and a half, 2, we met and we had a discussion what to do next. But the first thing, she sits down with me in a meeting and said, listen, you know exactly what we've done real estate-wise. Obviously, you're part of it. You know the addresses, the noise that we had, the challenges that we had. But she says, listen, it's been 2.5 years or so since we started. I'm waiting for something to happen. And she says, what am I missing? I said, what do you mean? She says, listen, yes, we had vacancy. Yes, we had some challenging, tenants. Nothing horrific, but there were late once or late twice, or it maybe took a little bit longer to rent. Everything you told us in terms of the noise happened. So, but all in all, it's been good. It's been 2.5 years. The rents are coming in. We don't have to deal with it much. It's kind of, in the background. And she says, if it works so well, and, with the noise, but it works well, and I see the money coming in, and we don't, do much with it, what am I missing? Like, how come, if it's so easy, once you start buying, why not more people are doing it? Like, why is it so hard for other people to them? She says, I am afraid they see something I don't. And my answer to her was, I don't know. I don't see. I think that as long as you're making good decisions along the way, and we are here to help you make good decisions along the way. That's the purpose of what we do. That's the core of what we do here. in order to get you to that point, and we calibrate your expectations on one end and help you, make good decisions on the other, you're doing fine. Don't think and ask what other people are doing or not doing, because obviously they're missing on something, right? You know that now. You were a skeptic at first. Now you know what I'm talking about. And she says, okay, I just wanted to make sure I don't miss anything. So Nir, you get the point. We want you to buy multiple properties. You said here, I have 2 and I'm running out of money. What do you need to do? Okay, so if you want to buy more, there's a couple of things you can probably go about it. 1, save up. It may take you 3 months, 6 months, a year, I don't know. It may be slow, but it's a possibility. Number 2, if you get to the point that that you build some equity in the houses that you own, whether it's your primary residence or your rental properties, you may be able to tap into that equity. But this is where I want you to be a bit careful. Every time you tap into your equity, that means you're going to affect either the cash flow or the money you need to bring in from your income. So let's use your house. Let's say your house appreciated from the time you purchased it, your house, not a rental, till now by $100,000, okay? Now, let's say you want to borrow out $50,000, right? The bank will not let you use 100% of the equity. They're going to always keep a margin. So let's say you need $50,000 to buy your next rental, and that's what you're going to do. You borrow against your own HELOC. Let's say the maximum you want to take or need to take or can take is $50,000. Now that $50,000, remember, you're going to pay. You have to pay. So your monthly payment will increase. Okay, so that means you need to make sure from your own income you have the ability to pay for that additional $50,000 that you borrowed. Okay, plus always ask yourself, what's going to happen to my house? Let's say those payments are $300 a month, right? Let's just, maybe even less, but let's just keep it simple, which doesn't necessarily mean a lot of money, but you should ask yourself, what happens to my house if I lose my job and it takes me 6 months or a year to find another job, and or how difficult would it be for me to cover that $300 a month, right? Remember that. And that's where I want you to be somewhat careful not to jeopardize any of your properties, just by the sake of over leveraging. Okay, I am all for leverage, but I want you to be careful about it, cautious about it. I'd rather you slow down the pace you're buying and stay safe. That's just my take. Rather than buying as much as you can and super leverage. Okay, the same thing goes with your rental property. So let's say your rental property, generates $200 in cash flow on average, okay? And you're gonna refinance or pull some equity out, and now the mortgage payments are gonna be, an additional $300 a month, right? So you are right now, based on this scenario, suffering from $100 negative cash flow a month. Now, $100 is not a lot of money at all, right? Most of us can easily handle that. But the way I see the negative $100 is, I'm not against it. I've done it many times in my career, but the way I'm looking at it is this. The cash flow that we carry from the properties is a buffer, right? It helps us cover vacancies, repairs. It's a cushion. The minute you step into negative $100, which is a very small amount, I would think you would agree, that means you're putting your cushion in jeopardy. Okay, that's something I don't really like. I have been in that situation personally. I have purchased many properties in a short period of time, in a period where I could put 5 and 10% down, but I knew from the get-go this is going to be a negative cash flow, and I was okay with it because the negative cash flow that is generated for my house, I can offset it against my taxes. I can deduct it. I can do something with it, so it's not really a negative 100. It's actually more like $50 negative. But when you have multiple properties, all in negative cash flow by design, and the economy turns, you're going to suffer, no doubt. Okay, unless you have a lot of money coming in to cover for those thousands of dollars of negative cash flow combined, you're going to suffer. So this is where I want you to be careful. Whatever maneuver you're doing, always don't think about how aggressive, listen, it's all my opinion based on my experience going through the recent year, a decade ago, big bust, right? Boom, bust, boom. I've been there, been suffering through it. Those are one of the things I've learned. I'd rather be a little bit more conservative and buy a smaller number of homes, but keep it, keep it more conservative in terms of the cash flow and not go aggressive. So one way is pulling equity from your properties, if it makes sense, whatever properties we're talking about. Another, and that's what I'm doing right now with one of our investors. He has 2 properties he's purchased 2 years ago in Nashville. They've appreciated quite a bit. He wants to, instead of refinancing and jeopardizing the cash flow, sell 2 and buy 3 others. And that, and that means he will be leveraged in the same way, but now 2 properties turn into 3, and the cash flow combined will be higher. So that's his game plan right now and what he's trying to do. By the way, the gal that I told you about that asked about what am I missing here, she already sold at least 1 house and bought another house instead of it at the beginning of this year, I think. And she also refinanced 2 other properties she purchased. She bought in 2013 and 14, pulled some money out, got a better rate, actually improved her cash flow, right? Because the rate she had back then was higher. And she used the funds from the refinance to buy 1 more property. So she was able, once she started accumulating properties, to shift things around or reposition mortgages in order to get more cash to buy more properties. So she's at the moment at a position, and even the other guy, that the portfolio is starting to self-perform and enabling them to shift equity around to increase their portfolio. We're not talking about taking 2 properties and turning into 5 more, right? 7 in total. We're just saying, here is 2. Let's use them, what built in equity, in them to buy 1 more, or sell 2 and buy 3. It's a small tweak, but it's all exponentially. By the way, the whole point that I'm trying to say, by doing those tweaks, they are not bringing money into the table. They're just repositioning assets in order to increase their, portfolio. So those are the main things you can do. You can also consider, I don't know if you have retirement account that is available to you buy real estate. It's doable. It's usually goes under the name of self-directed IRA or solo 401k if you're self-employed. You can do that and get a mortgage, right? It's different mortgages than you can get on your own, but it's definitely a possibility. So those are the main things you can do. The one other super creative way to go about it, super creative, is if you have a good credit, but you happen to have a friend who has money but no credit, and you're gonna partner with that person, and you say, listen, I'll bring the credit and the borrowing power, you bring the cash, okay? We may be able to buy 1 or 2 properties together somehow. How exactly? I'm not gonna go into it. It's more legal mumbo jumbo. I don't have the energy to go into it, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. Usually it works with friends and not strangers, but it can be done. So if you want to do something like this, it's definitely something that can be done on your end, not with me. I can help you find the property, but not the friend with the mortgage. But it's doable. Just being a little bit creative. So that means one person is more the shadow investor, so to speak, and the other person is the owner on record. That doesn't mean you don't have an official document that's saying, we are the owners of this property. When you report this property to the IRS, you're probably going to say, I'm going to report my ownership percentages, and he's going to report his ownership percentages. I've done this. It's doable, but I'm just saying you gotta make sure you do it correctly, and you gotta find that person. So that's how I would go about this. The 4th way. So we talked about refinancing and pulling money out of the HELOC in a safe way. We talked about repositioning assets that you already own and build some equity. We talked about self-directed IRA or retirement account. I think we talked about partnering with someone who has cash but no ability to get a mortgage. The 5th way is actually utilize some of your funds towards flipping houses or any type of short-term investing. excuse me, in order to build up equity. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of flips in a clear purpose to build more short-term equity or funds in order to buy more rental properties. So that's what I'm using for this purpose. It's a dual engine or dual mechanism that one supplement or complement the other. So that's another thing you can do. I see a follow-up from you, and then we'll go to Misha with the leverage. Gotcha. The negative 100 is small. I agree. However, the house will increase in value that can be sold, and or the mortgage will be lower. Absolutely, I completely agree. The only thing I'm suggesting, based on my experience, sometimes we want to be very aggressive, and sometimes, I think it's better to be patient and hold ourselves, kind of find that balance. I had a conversation with one of my very close investors, great guy, buying all the time. He's under contract, or he's now attempting to buy 5 properties at the same time. And he called me a little bit kind of freaking out. Maybe he's going too fast. And we talked through those items, and at the end of that conversation, I said, listen, I think that at this point you should buy 3 and not 5, because you're going to dilute your resources significantly, which may affect your personal life. And how about in 3, 4, 5 months, when things stabilizes with the 3 that you're buying right now and it's all okay, you add the additional ones, right? 2 more. I understand the reason you want to quickly move forward. I know you well. That's fine. But you know what? Sometimes patient. 6 months are not going to make big difference or dent in your portfolio. And and he actually at first resisted my cautious or my suggestion for being a little bit more conservative. But I think at the end of the conversation, he says, you know what? I agree. I don't want to jeopardize other financial aspects of my life. I don't know why I'm even got to the point that I'm running like crazy. So he's slowing down right now. Or at least he said he'll think about it. What is the average percentage of a flip revenue? We'll get to that later if we have time. I know you and I spoke about it multiple times in the past. I want to go back to Misha, who asked about the leverage. So his clarification. Misha is asking, what's the recommended relation between debt and asset I have? Debt and asset I have. Still a little bit confused. I'm going to try and make it, I'm going to try and answer it as much as I understand it. So my take is this. If you are a US-based person, okay, I'm going to talk about US mortgages. If you are a US-based person and have a job and good credit, you don't have to be a high earner, you don't have to be a millionaire, you don't have to have a perfect credit, but I'm just going to assume you have a steady job, okay income, good credit, you can probably qualify for a mortgage, right? Now, how much? Well, typically I see anywhere from 20% down, 80% mortgage when you purchase, and it can go anywhere above that, of course, okay? So you can go as little as 20% down in many cases. The question is, do you want to? And this is where I want to open it for a few suggestions or questions back to you. Number one is more and more of my investors are shifting from 20 to 25 and even percent down, and even from 25 to 30% down. Why are we doing this? A couple of reasons. When you move from 20 to 25% down, you get 2 little bonuses, tiny bonuses that make a difference. Number one, you'll get a little bit lower interest rate. Not a big difference, a little bit. Number two, you're just going to borrow a smaller principal amount, right? So your borrowing amount is a bit smaller. Between those 2 improvements, we are immediately going to affect the cash flow, okay? Now, why is this so important? On many of the properties that we are looking at these days, the cash flow is so thin, every 50 or $100 really make a difference, right? So if I can get to a situation that in 20, I see a good house, but with 20% down is really challenging with a little bit of a cash flow that we were looking for, even as little as $100 per month on average. And at 25%, I know I need a little bit more money, but it brings me to a buffer of a better cash flow, 150. It's not going to take me to 300. even 150, I like it. Why? I'm being a little bit more cautious, okay? That's number one. Number two, so many, in recent 2-3 years primarily, a lot of the houses in many of the markets we are in have been appreciating, okay? So prices are going up, right? Rents do not, or maybe not as quickly. So you see maybe a trend like this. The prices are going up like this and the rents are going up like this, okay? So they're both going up, but not even, in a similar manner or pattern, right? Maybe the prices are going 7%, per year, and the rents are going 1.5%, 2%, right? So obviously the gap is getting bigger. So the cash flow is very hard to make it happen. So here I am, I'm an investor. I'm very much money-minded. I'm looking at a good rental property. Everything makes sense except one thing. Cash flow is tight. Cash flow is tight. We see it every day. Now, should I give up on this house for, just because the numbers are a little bit tight? How about I go to 25% down or even 30% down to make the numbers a little bit more conservative for me? So I would definitely consider, make a judgment call. See if I can qualify for 20% down and everything else makes sense to buy this property for 20% down and the cash flow is there, I'm okay with it. But if I'm only kind of tight on the cash flow, because I would want that margin, personally, from my experience, I want that cushion, 100, 150, 200 and more, right? Then I would go to 25 or even 30% down in order to help me get that cushion that I'm looking for. That's a general way I would go about it. Now I want to tell you some other thing. Sometimes I meet with investors who are investors who are a bit older, and their mindset is not necessarily building equity over the next 20 years, which they do still, or 30 years, which you still do have time. They're actually looking at things, in a little bit more conservative way, saying, listen, in 5-10 years, I'm planning to go into retirement, and I wanna be in a position that I'm not struggling. And you know what? I don't need 10 houses. Less is okay for me. In that case, and many of those people come to me and say, you know what? I was actually thinking in buying cash. When someone tells me they're going to buy cash, which is a super conservative way to go about it, which is fine, right? Maybe it fits you. Here's my take. When you're buying cash, I rather, for your sake, not for my sake, that you buy, instead of one house cash, 2 houses, 50% mortgage, 50% down payment, okay? It may gonna cost you a little bit more because of the closing costs and other aspects, so not a lot more. So you may be spending a bit more than one house. But here's the beauty of this. 2 houses with 50% mortgage, 50% loan will generate about the same cash flow combined as one house all cash, or just about, very close. So wouldn't you want to still build some equity in a very conservative way, instead of by borrowing and buying 2 instead of 1, using almost the same amount? So for me, for everybody who's a little bit more cautious or concerned or want to be conservative, and you know what? Sometimes I even hear people, especially foreigners, I don't want to have a mortgage. A mortgage is not for me. I'm too afraid of that. Are you kidding me? I spoke to a young guy, right? A young guy. He's a foreigner. He's now living in the States. He makes a really good, salary at one of the Bay Area tech companies. I'm talking about really good, earner. But his father-in-law back home in his native country, he's a real estate person, right? Not, he does real estate for years. And this father, who's probably now in his 60s or more, or closer to 70s, father-in-law, told this little, nice, gentleman who's younger than 30, told him, never buy with a mortgage, don't do a mortgage, debt is bad. Listen, I can only say, are you kidding me? I mean, yes, some debt is not a good thing. When you borrow a car, to buy a car, this is a depreciating asset. I understand that. Not that I'm not doing it, I understand the logic behind it. Typically in real estate, the mechanism, if done properly, is going to take you upward, not downward. So I want to borrow as much as I can, as long as it makes sense. So I have some my concerns how much to borrow, but that but I want to leverage as much as I can to meet my concerns or my financial needs, right? This guy, I told him, you're gonna follow your father-in-law, and you're gonna be okay, just following for the real estate and buy, two houses because that's what you can afford, or a house every other year. You'll be fine. But if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, but not aggressive, but faster, and I was blown away. The guy is younger than 30. He has so many years to build. This guy, if he starts now, by the age of 50, which is 20 years down the line or sooner, he can be in a very wealthy position, real estate wise. He could probably even retire on accumulating 10 or more rental properties. That's mind blowing. Usually, I don't speak to people that are younger than 30. Sometimes they do show up, but most of the times they don't. So usually it's 30 and after, 30, 40s, 50s. Those are the main people that I speak with. 60s and 70s as well, but those are the, most of them in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. That's when we really think about those things of financial, wealth in our lives. This guy, below 30, is talking about it now, but he's following his father-in-law, who's much older than him, different financial standing, different challenges, different. Why? You know what? You still want to follow your father-in-law? Fine. Go and do 50%. 50% mortgage, 50%, 50%, loan, and you're still gonna build some equity, leverage, not very conservative, and you'll do well. Much better than just buying one cash. That's just my opinion. So that's what I think about mortgage. Hopefully that helps, Misha, with your question. It's a good and interesting. So I'm thinking a second question. I'm thinking of giving my tenants gift cards for Christmas. What are your thoughts about it? I know people do that. I never felt that this is how I should treat my tenant. I think that's just me. I'm not totally against it. I think the best way for me to show my appreciation to my tenant is to take care of them. Meaning, there's a problem, take care of it immediately, and let them know that I'm taking care of it. For example, my Orlando house, one of my houses in Orlando, she called, the AC, is broken, summer, hot, humid, kids. I told her, listen, I'm gonna call the company right now. And I kept telling her, I haven't heard back from them. I'm gonna try them again. And she said, thank you and thank you. And the repair technician came out the next morning. So they had a rough night. They can handle that, right? But I told her what's going on. I kept her informed. I told her we're taking care of it. It was taken care of, solved within less 24 hours than the situation, came to my attention. For me, this is much more important than a gift card, right? That's just my take, right? The one thing, and I think this person is here, with us, that I thought was a nice gesture. I think this person is even, listening or watching. He actually consulted with me on that situation. His tenant, I think the wife died, if I recall correctly, and he sent, I think, flowers in some note, personal note, and that was, for me, that makes sense. That makes us human. A gift card, you know what? I rather give my tenant a discount, and saying, listen, you've been such a good tenant, I'm going to give you a discount for a month, whatever. That just shows more. That's just me. But you know what? I know people do that. I don't think it's a problem to do that. I am a little bit old school, where I think there's a power positions between a tenant and an owner. Usually, the owner is in a position in this two roles. I want to keep that position or appearance of that position. That's my take on it. You don't have to agree with me. I can't say that I'm 100% correct about it. I never felt the need. I never thought it's necessary. My take, my values. If I come across as a harsh person, I don't think I am. I can tell you that I'm very human and person, and for me, I want them to be happy and stay and have, and be okay. I don't think a gift card is that necessary. I think fixing and taking care is much more important. You show it by action and not by a gift card. That's just my take. I will tell you this. After 15 years or so of working with property managers and tenants, what my tenants taught me is that when they're not playing according to the rules, I have zero tolerance. Not because I'm a harsh person, because every time I was human and I was patient and I was treating them, taking the word for they'll send me the money next week or something like that, they always screwed up. Always, 100% of the times. So every time a tenant told me, "Oh, I'm sorry, I need another week or two," and it's the holiday, do me a favor, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Every time I've done that, I got nothing. So they taught me well. And one of my other property managers that I used to work with in the past told me, a lease agreement with a tenant is a two-way agreement. When you have, when the agreement says you need to pay until a certain date and the tenant doesn't pay and you're not enforcing it, you're in problem because you are not enforcing the agreement that you both signed. You need to enforce the agreement, not just the tenant. So if it says rent is due by the 5th and the 6th the rent is not there, you need to do something about it, because if not, you're not enforcing the lease. Very, very makes sense, but usually people don't behave this way. So Misha, thank you for a really good question. I hope that I was able to give you a little bit of insight. Nir is saying I'm sending tenants small gift. Okay, see, it works. And they love it and give recommendation, and other tenants. Okay, see, here's someone says works, I do it. Go right ahead. I have it's not one thing I would concern as a critical yes or a critical no. Okay, let's see. What is the average percentage of flip revenue? The average percentage of a flip revenue. What is the average percentage of flip revenue? Well, we're doing flips right now that are gonna generate anywhere from I think the smallest, the biggest one is probably $100,000 in profit, and the smallest one is probably, $10,000, $12,000 in profit. Okay, the $10,000, $12,000 in profit. The estimate, we just bought one at the auction in Kansas City yesterday. So we bought one in Kansas City at the auction yesterday. Starting bid 20,000 and change. Maximum allowed bid by us 40,000. We got it for 30,000 and 1,900, right? 30,000, 1,900. We purchased it. We're probably going to put 25,000 into it. Additional cost is probably going to be another 6 or 7 fees, overhead, etc. So 6 or 7. This one should be done within a month, maybe a month and a half, depending how quickly we're going to be able to start. So a month and a half renovation, probably 4 months start to finish, closing to closing. The revenue is going to be $10,000 to $12,000 net to the investor, but it's reflecting 45% annual return on his money. So 45%, but it's a small amount of money. It's only $12,000 ish projected. We haven't sold it, of course. It's a small deal, no complaints. The thing I like about this, besides the high return, is mostly it's going to be quickly in and out. It's a simple renovation, maybe 20, 25, go in, go out, be done with it within a month or so, and we're done. Okay, so I like that. A lot of the projects I do right now, the shortest one is like 6-month renovation. Having a project who is a little bit shorter, renovation only, it's actually a good breather for a change. I miss those days. I used to have them a lot, lots of them years back, but we changed over the years. Now I'm kind of trying to see an opportunity to go back into that as well. Good. Okay, I'm gonna just use the next minute to tell you about an event we're having next week. And then if you have more questions, I'll wait on them to come up on the um, on the Facebook, of course. Give me a second here. Okay. So next week. So first of all, let me just say we had a summer of about every other week a webinar. They're all recorded. You can tap into them if you want. You just have to register, or some of them are free. Some of them with a minimal 10, 15 bucks fee. Nothing expensive. It depends which one. We had 3 so far, 2 in English, 1 in Hebrew. The one in Hebrew was just last week. And then we have a 4th one coming next week, which is on Tuesday, June 26th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Tuesday, I'm putting the details here. Now, it's free. It's a webinar, so it's not on this platform. You have to register for free on our other system and register, and you'll get all the details how to participate. And this is one of my favorite webinars, because it's actually one I don't do on core real estate. It's kind of in the background, but I don't talk about the core aspect of real estate. What I'm trying to talk about in this one is how can you, what can you, and how can you do or take actions to be more successful, okay? I've been privileged to work with real estate investors for the past 14 plus years, working with real estate investors, helping them purchase rentals, sell rentals, do flips. I've been involved in more than 3,500 transactions, okay? During the boom and a huge bust of 2007-8, and now another boom. So I've really seen a lot, how people behave. We see in real estate, and then I see from the side, I'm on the side, and I'm also watching what people do, how they behave, what is making one person successful more than someone else. I've taken all those kind of items and I brought them together to a webinar, which is one of my favorites, because I don't talk core real estate. I talk about how you can be more successful, what things you should do in order to help yourself, and I go one by one. I call it like a mental muscles. I want to talk to you and show you those mental muscles, which I'm sure you're familiar with them, but I'm just going to outline it and explain it in a better way to help you. The whole purpose is this webinar next week is to help you succeed, not in the sense of should I buy a rental or a flip or do 10% or 20%. Forget about that for a second. Let's talk about success. Let's talk about what can help you become more successful as a person, as an individual, and especially as a real estate investors, and what people do that help, prevents them from doing that. So that's coming up free of charge. So it's a no-brainer. Register on the link, and hopefully we'll see you on that webinar on Tuesday. So in a few days, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And if not on the webinar, then I guess we're going to see you next week on the next session that we hold every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, live on Facebook here. I usually try to bring a topic and discuss it, but like you've seen today, we were able to use about 50 minutes just to discuss about questions that you bring. I love this format. I love the format of not bringing my topic, but actually giving you the opportunity to ask. It's my favorite, right? Either way works for me, but this is my favorite. You guys, I see no more questions coming in. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna thank you for your time. I hope to meet with you in person on Skype, phone, or one-on-one if you come to Orange County, California. Be there to help you invest in real estate. Be there to help you make decisions. Be there to help you make good decisions about investing and help you succeed like I've been doing with a lot of investors for many years. So thank you. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your day. Thank God it's Friday. I can't say that I'm, that I'm not happy about it. I can't wait to wrap up the day, a few more hours, and take a little break. It's been a very crazy hectic week. I love seeing the names that I meet with and I talk to, like Sivan and Nir. Nir, you are like a groupie. What can I say? I thank you joining, asking questions. I see a lot of names that I know, people that I haven't spoken to for a while. Thank you for joining, participating, asking. Have a terrific weekend. I hope to talk or see you soon. Bye bye, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom. Bye bye.